As human beings, God's created us with a lot of incredible abilities. But there's two that really strike me as very, very powerful. One is the ability to choose. I'll do this, I won't do that. The other is the ability to dream. The ability to look into the future and imagine something bigger and better in the future, and then come back into the present and work in the present to make that future vision a reality. It's an extraordinary ability, the ability to dream. Maybe one of the most powerful abilities God has given us. We're here tonight because the Archbishop had a dream, and he passed the dream on to Father Peter, and Father Peter passed it on to the Rediscover team. And now they want to pass it on to you. And they have a dream for the people in your archdiocese, that they could know God in a new way through the new evangelization. And they're invited you here tonight because they want you to become ambassadors of the dream. Everything great in history has been built by people who believe that the future could be bigger than the past. Everything great in history has been built by people who believe that the future could be bigger than the past. Our culture's ready to write Catholicism off. Very hard out there to find people who would say, yes, the future of Catholicism is going to be bigger than the past. But I believe it is. I believe it's going to be. I believe it will be. And I believe all of us have a role to play in helping build that bigger future. Because I believe the more that the culture gets a grip of our world, the more people are going to need Catholicism, and the more people are going to recognize the genius of Catholicism and be attracted to that genius. I don't meet anybody, okay? I travel all the time, go all around the world. I don't meet anybody who says, the world's in great shape. Just keep it moving in the direction it's going. You know, just don't touch it because it's moving in a great direction. No, everyone's worried about the world, the direction it's moving in. Parents are worried about the world their children will grow up in. Grandparents, when I talk to grandparents, the most common response I hear is, I try not to think about it, it just makes me too anxious. The world is not moving in a great direction. And everybody agrees on that. And our mission, part of our mission as the church, is to transform the world. But you can't just go out and transform the world. The world is only transformed when you or I are transformed. And when we go out one at a time and help other people be transformed. Not by some program, not by some idea, but by God and by a person, Jesus Christ. I've been traveling, as I said, for 20 years. Next year I will have been traveling for 20 years. And I've never seen anything like what's going to happen in your archdiocese. I was so excited when Father Peter called me and he laid out the vision. I thought, man, this is good. You know, and then as we start to work with your team in the archdiocese, I saw something that sadly I don't see a lot of in the church, and that's professional rigor. It's like these people are serious about this stuff. You know, if we were working with a worldly organization out in the world, it wouldn't be done better. I absolutely know that. And that's been really, really inspiring to me. And you're going to see that as this thing's unfolded in your archdiocese. And we've got to take our hats off to that. At Dynamic Catholic, which is the organization I work with, we've spent 4 years doing some research. And what we wanted to research was, what is the difference between a highly engaged Catholic and a disengaged Catholic? What's the difference between a highly engaged Catholic and a disengaged Catholic? You see, when you go to church on Sunday, you look around, you can see there's varying levels of engagement, right? You know, there's a spectrum of engagement. At one end of the spectrum, you've got some people who are 100% engaged. They're passionate, they're purposeful, 100% engaged. But then you've got people who are 85% engaged, 60% engaged, 50% engaged. Same thing happens at work. Who went to work today? Did you go to work today? Okay. Who's going to work tomorrow? Who's not going to work tomorrow? Who doesn't understand the question? You know, at work, you go into any business, any organization, you've got some people who are 100% engaged, and then you've got some people who are 85% engaged, and 60%, and 50%, and 35%, and 15%, and then you got, at the other end, you've got the Q&S people. I call them Q&S people because they quit and stay. That's a problem, right? They quit, but they stay. You say to these people, how long have you worked here? They say, 20 years. You say, when did you quit? They say, 16 years ago. I remember it really good. It was a Friday afternoon about 16 years ago. I just said to myself, I quit. I didn't say it to anybody else, just to myself. They quit, but they stay, right? And when you've got to work with quit and stay people, that's toxic. That's poisonous. Well, the same thing happens at church, right? We've got people 100% engaged, and then 80% and 50% and 60%. I probably should have put the 100% over here with you, Archbishop. Sorry about that. But if we really want to engage Catholics at a high level, if we really want to take it to the next level, we have to know what is the difference between highly engaged Catholics and disengaged Catholics. The first thing we did was we did an 80-20 study. 80-20 principle, or the Pareto principle, basically says that 80% of your outcomes come from 20% of your causes. Okay? We wondered if that's true in a parish. We studied 217 parishes from coast to coast. We examined two things, volunteerism and financial contribution. We discovered the 80-20 principle doesn't apply in Catholic parishes. 6.4% of American Catholics contribute 80% of the volunteer hours in a parish, and 6.8% of American Catholics contribute 80% of the financial contributions in a parish. We rounded it up to 7%. There's an 84% overlap between those two groups, so they're the same people. When I first got this first research back to me, my staff told me that I went into a depression for about 3 weeks. And then one day, I was reading it again, and it occurred to me this might be the best news the Catholic Church has got in 50 years. And the reason is because our faith is a faith of hope. And if 7% of Catholics in America can do all that we're doing at the moment, imagine what 14% could do. I'm not talking about engaging all 100%. Imagine what 14% could do, or 21%. Literally, we could change the world. First, we have to work out what separates the 7% from the 93%. 4 things. Number 1, the 7% have a daily commitment to prayer. If you ask the 100%, do you pray? They all say yes. All Catholics pray. But the 7% have a daily commitment to prayer. They tend to have a routine of prayer, and they tend to have a routine within their routine. When they sit down to pray, they don't just see what happens, they have a plan. They have a routine of prayer. Second thing is they're continuous learners in the area of the faith. They read Catholic books, listen to Catholic CDs, go to Catholic events. You people are in the 7%. You wouldn't be here tonight otherwise. You know, go to Catholic events. You want to learn more about your faith. The third thing is generosity. If you take this 7%, they're just overwhelmingly generous. We talk at stewardship, we talk about 3 categories. What are they? Time, talent, treasure. Yeah, these people are generous in that, but they're creative in their generosity. Their generosity has tentacles that reaches into just every corner of their life. I'll tell you one great story I heard when we were doing the interviews. One woman, she was identified by her pastor as being part of the 7%. That's why we were interviewing her. And she said that she had just recovered from cancer. Okay? And while she was sick with cancer, she's a nurse, and their policy at the hospital was that she could have 1 month leave without 1 month leave with pay, and then as long as she needed, she could have off but without pay. One of her nurse friends at the hospital, who was also Catholic, we later discovered is just completely committed to her faith and would be also considered part of the 7%. She organized so that somebody would come in on their day off to work for this woman while she was sick with cancer. Every day. Somebody would come in on their day off to work for this woman while she's sick with cancer so she could still get paid. Every day for 4.5 years. That's the creative generosity that the 7% have. Yes, they're giving more of their money, they're giving more of their time, they're giving more of their talent, but their generosity goes way beyond that. It's overwhelming generosity. And in the face of that generosity, you always see the face of God. In the face of that type of generosity. There's 4 signs: prayer, study, generosity, and the 4th one, evangelization. 7% are trying to share the faith with other people. We got a lot of talk about evangelization, and in your packets, don't reach for them now, but in your bags, in your tote bags, you've got a binder, and in tab 8, you've got the Archbishop's pastoral letter on the new evangelization. And one of the things he addresses is how a lot of Catholics are sort of uncomfortable with the phrase, and how we get to a new understanding of the phrase. And this is one of the challenges I want to give you tonight. I want you to read that letter. Okay, but just not read it. Don't just sit down and read it. I want you to take it, and I want you to take it to your prayer. I want you to pray that letter. Okay? I want you to read one paragraph at a time. And after each paragraph, I want you to underline a phrase. And then I just want you to talk to God about that phrase. Just that phrase. And maybe you do 3 or 4 paragraphs a day for the next few weeks. Not just to sit down and read it, but to sit down and pray that. Because here is the truth. We're all evangelists. We all evangelize about something. Some people evangelize about their iPhones. Don't they? They say, "Oh, I got this new iPhone. It's so good. Look at this app. You can't believe this app." What are they doing? That's evangelization, right? That's evangelization. But the best they've got to evangelize is their iPhone. That's sad, right? That's sad that somebody could spend a whole life evangelizing about their iPhone. Joan of Arc said, "We all give our lives for something." We all give our lives to something. Some people give their lives to an iPhone, to evangelize about an iPhone. Every single one of us, we all evangelize about something. Some people evangelize about their favorite vacation place, right? Have you heard some people, they talk about their favorite vacation place like it's eternity in heaven with God, Some people evangelize about cruise ships. They go on a cruise. They can't wait to go on their next cruise. They talk about the buffet, on the cruise. You can't believe the buffet on this cruise ship. I mean, it's better than any all-you-can-eat buffet I've ever been to, Every single one of us, we're evangelists. Most people evangelize about the wrong thing. Most people evangelize about the wrong thing. And what we want to do is we want to help people discover God so that they can go out and introduce the love of God to other people. Because more than ever, maybe, in the history of humanity, people need to experience the love of God. More than ever before, people need a really deep, personal, dynamic relationship with God. But how are they going to get it? How are they going to get it? There are a lot of people alive today, Catholics and non-Catholics. If they had a question about Catholicism, there wouldn't be a single person in their life who they would feel really confident, I could bring this question about Catholicism to this person, and that person would have the answer. And I could trust that person's answer. There's a lot of people who don't even have one person in their life who could deliver that answer for them. And that's tragic. Because we now live maybe in a time where more people have more questions about Catholicism than ever before. Both Catholics and non-Catholics. People got questions about our faith. And the reality is there's genius in Catholicism. There is genius in Catholicism, but we've got to get beyond the surface. You see, our culture wants to make everything superficial. Our culture takes the important and makes it trivial, and takes the trivial and makes it important. That's what happens. Think about, One of the ways God speaks to us is through our talents and abilities, right? God's given us all talents and abilities. But there's lots of people out there who think, oh, I don't have any talents and abilities. You know why that is? Because our culture takes the trivial and makes it important, and takes the important and makes it trivial. As human beings, we've got two different types of talents and abilities. We've got common talent, and we've got extraordinary talent. Our culture is obsessed with extraordinary talent. So extraordinary talent would be the ability to write a symphony like Mozart, or the ability to paint a picture like Monet, or the ability to slam dunk a basketball from the halfway, or the ability to hit a golf ball 350 yards straight. That's important. That's an important distinction right there. Our culture is obsessed with these sorts of things, right? These extraordinary talents. Now, what is common talent? Well, common talent would be your ability to make a difference in other people's lives. Okay, every single person, every single one of us has got that. The ability to make a difference in other people's lives. Every single one of us is capable of that. If you took a day next week and you said, all right, I'm going to spend my whole day just trying to make a difference in other people's lives, it'd be amazing how many people's lives you could touch in just one day. But because everybody's got that talent, we think it's not important. We obsess with the ability to slam dunk a basketball or hit a golf ball. Why? Because our culture takes the trivial and makes it important. Takes the important and makes it trivial. And this is what's happened in so many aspects of our lives. And so what has happened to Catholicism? Our culture's taken the Catholicism, what could be more important, and made it trivial. And made it trivial. And we need to change that. We need to change that in our lives. We need to help other people change that in their lives. Everyone you know has got challenges in their lives. Everyone you know has got questions. You've got questions tonight. Something's going on in your life right now. But do you ask the question, okay, what's God trying to do in this situation? Or do you go to all the experts? Do you go to everyone who knows? When you have a big decision to make in your life, do you go to just about everyone who knows just about nothing and ask them what you should do? Because that's what's happening in our culture. That's what's happening in our culture. When people are making decisions, they go to just about everyone who knows just about nothing and ask them what they think they should do. Instead of coming to Jesus. All the answers are in the tabernacle. He's got all the answers. Whatever the question is, He's got all the answers. And what we want to do is we want to invite people to rediscover the genius of Catholicism. We want to invite people to rediscover faith. We want to invite people to rediscover God. We want to invite people to rediscover a really practical spirituality in their everyday life. And who doesn't need to rediscover? Not because our faith is different than it was last year, but because we're different. We're different. But in order to bring about this grand vision, in order to bring about this dream in so many people's hearts, there's something that every single one of us has to do. And that is we've got to turn on the tap, okay? Imagine a bucket, okay? Go to this bucket. Doesn't matter how big the bucket is. You've got a bucket. And you turn on a tap, a faucet, okay? Just to a drip, the slightest drip, the smallest drip you can create. You turn that tap onto a drip. Sooner or later, what will happen to the bucket? Overflows, right? It doesn't have a choice. Sooner or later, it has to overflow. Has to overflow. Doesn't have a choice. The drips, prayer, sacraments, the scriptures. We got to step closer to God. We step closer to God, He'll fill the bucket. Bucket gets full, has to overflow. Doesn't have a choice. You can put holes in the bucket, some sins here and some sins there, some self-destructive behaviors or addictions or whatever. Yeah, we put holes in the bucket, but God can patch the holes as well. But we got to start the drip. Got to start that drip. I'll tell you the secret. I'll tell you the secret to bringing all this about. I'll tell you the secret to bringing about whatever dreams you have for your local parish. I'll tell you the secret. Once upon a time, there was a businessman, phenomenally successful, one of those what we call self-made man, even though you know there's no such thing, but that's what the world calls them. Came from nothing, became phenomenally successful and incredibly wealthy, and he owned a castle about an hour outside of London. He's so busy he never went to the castle. So one day he decided he would have a party at the castle. He'd have a party at the castle. He invited 600 friends, celebrities from all over the world. The guest list was like a who's who of the whole planet. And then just sprinkled among the guest list was like 8 or 10 very ordinary people. They were childhood friends of the host, people he'd stayed in touch with his whole life. And on the evening of the party, the castle just looked spectacular. It was all lit up with these flames. And they had a wonderful dinner, and after dinner, the host, he stood up and he said, "Tonight, for entertainment, instead of music and dancing and those sorts of things like we usually have at my parties, I thought we'd do something different. Being that we're in this fabulous setting, I've invited one of England's premier Shakespearean actors to present a series of excerpts from the writings of William Shakespeare." The actor stood up to thunderous applause, and the people welcomed him, and he began one after another to present these excerpts from the writings of Shakespeare. And each one was better than the last, just brilliantly presented. And after each episode, the audience, they would erupt in applause. After about 20 minutes, the actor announced that he was finished. But if anyone had any favorite passages from Shakespeare, he said he'd be happy to present any requests that people had if he knew them. And one man raised his hand and he asked for the soliloquy from Macbeth. And the actor presented it brilliantly. And again, the place erupted in applause. A woman raised her hand and asked for the 14th sonnet. And he presented that powerfully. Another woman raised her hand and asked for the balcony scene from Romeo and Juliet. And he presented that again brilliantly. And then an old man raised his hand, way down the back of the banquet hall, and the actor called on the old man, and as it turned out, the old man was a priest, a childhood friend of the host. And the priest said to the actor, he said, "Sir, I realize it's not Shakespeare, but I was wondering, could you present for us the 23rd Psalm?" The actor smiled. He said, "Father, in 3rd grade, Sister Mary made us all learn the 23rd Psalm, and every morning someone had to recite the 23rd Psalm. And I'd be happy to recite the 23rd Psalm on just one condition." The priest was a little taken aback, wasn't expecting conditions. He said to the actor, "What is your condition?" The actor said, "I'll recite the Psalm if, when I'm finished, you'll recite the Psalm." The priest was really taken aback now. But he really wanted to hear the actor recite the Psalm, and so reluctantly he agreed. And the actor began in a loud, powerful, commanding voice. "The Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing I shall want." And when he had finished, the people clapped, and they stood, and they cheered, like they would never stop clapping and cheering. When they finally did settle down, the actor looked back down toward the old priest. He said, "Father, it's your turn now." Standing up at his place at the table, the old priest, he fidgeted with the tablecloth in front of him. Then he began in a soft but deeply reflective voice. "The Lord is my shepherd. There is nothing I shall want. He lets me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside peaceful waters. He restores my soul. He leads me in the ways of righteousness for His name's sake. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I'll not be afraid. For the Lord, He is at my side. His rod and his staff, they comfort and protect me. He prepares a table for me in the presence of my enemies. He anoints my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will live in the house of the Lord forever. And when the priest had finished, nobody clapped, and nobody spoke, and nobody moved. Seizing the moment, the actor, he stood back up and he said to the people, "Why was the priest's recital of the Psalms so much more powerful than mine?" People just looked at him. He said, "I'll tell you. I know the Psalm. There's no question. I know the Psalm. But Father, He knows the shepherd. If you do nothing else in your life, seriously, nothing else, if you do nothing else in your life, get to know the shepherd. Get to know the shepherd. You know, our Holy Father has called us to a year of faith. Get to know the shepherd. A year from now, are you going to be closer to the shepherd than you were tonight? That's the question. Because everything else is trivial. Everything else is trivial. And the more you and I get to know the shepherd, the more we will draw people to him. First Christians, they had it going on. They had it going on. People were coming to him 1,000 at a time. Anybody had a parish where 1,000 people joined at a time lately? No. But that's how the first Christians, they did it. How did they do it? They lived differently, they loved differently, and they worked differently. They lived differently, they loved differently, they worked. When was the last time you were just working, and somebody came up to you and said, "I can tell you're Catholic just by the way you work"? Doesn't happen, right? But that should be our identity. It should be that obvious. When you go to a job interview, people say, "Oh, you're involved in your church, you're Catholic?" They should want to hire you just because you're Catholic. Because the assumption should be you're a harder worker than most, you work better than most, you'll pay more attention to details than most, you'll give better customer service than most. Because when we live our faith, they're the results. But we don't live differently, we don't love differently, don't work differently. Divorce rate in America, 51%. Divorce among Americans, Catholics, 51%. We blend in. Why? Because we don't know the shepherd enough yet. Get to know the shepherd. You know, you think about John Paul II. I remember, you used to watch John Paul II pray, Sometimes you see him on TV in this little chapel having Mass in the morning. He kneeled down after communion, and he would you could just tell, just watching him. He closed his eyes, and you could just tell he was going to a place deep within him. And he lived his life from that deep place. But you take the same guy and you put him in a football stadium with 200,000 people, but the same thing. He kneeled down after communion, he closed his eyes, and you could tell he was going to that same deep place. I remember when Benedict came to America and went to Ground Zero, and he knelt down there to pray. You could tell he was going to a deep place within him. Find that deep place within you and start to live your life from that deep place. Because the world doesn't need any more people living from a shallow, superficial place. Your parish doesn't need any more people living from a shallow, superficial place. The world needs people who have the courage to find that deep place and live from that deep place. Because as you go to that deep place, you will take other people to that deep place. If you go to a shallower place, you'll take other people to that shallower place. Everyone's an evangelist. We just evangelize for the wrong thing most of the time. So let's get serious about evangelizing for the right thing. What does it take? What does it take? Like everything else that involves the gospel, it takes courage. the prerequisite for life. It's the prerequisite for Christianity. Courage. Because everything in life requires courage. Everything in life requires courage. It doesn't matter if it's playing football or coaching football. It doesn't matter if it's crossing the room to ask a woman on a date or rekindling a love that has grown cold. It doesn't matter if it's your first day at your first job or your first day at a new job or struggling to overcome an addiction or battling with a potentially fatal disease or just coming humbly before your God and saying, God, what do you think I should do? Life requires courage. It's the prerequisite. The gospel demands courage. It's the prerequisite. Where will you get the courage from? Not out there in the crazy, noisy, busy world. Only if by some grace we have the wisdom to step into the classroom of silence and get to know the shepherd in a deeper way. Every day, a deeper way, a deeper way. Because then God will use us and use us powerfully. Despite our faults, despite our weaknesses, God will use us in powerful ways. This is a great initiative. It's more than an initiative. I don't even know what to call it. To call it a program would be a sin, okay? Absolutely sin. If anyone starts talking about this as a program, don't let them do that. That's a sin. This is not a program, okay? Initiative's even the wrong word. I don't even know what to call it, okay? What I know for sure is that it's bigger than all of us. It's bigger than all of us. If we step up a little bit, okay, step up a little bit, something incredible would happen. As the Archbishop was saying, there's 74 million Catholics in America. If we all just stepped it up a notch, something incredible would happen. And this program, this initiative, this Rediscover dream, it's not about making everyone saints by next Thursday. Not even a courtesy chuckle for that? It's not about that. It's about helping people grow incrementally in their faith. A little bit this week, a little bit next week. It's a great opportunity. It's a great opportunity. I've never seen anything like this in the church. And so I want you to become ambassadors. I want you to become ambassadors of the dream. I want you to take this back to your parish. I want you to work hard on it. I want you to work hard on it. I want you to work as if it mattered. Because sometimes we do stuff in the church and we do it to get it done. But we don't do it as if it matters. And this stuff matters. And we can't convince people that Catholicism matters, that their faith matters, that Jesus matters, unless they see it in us. And when you've got the passion, people can see it in your eyes. So turn on the tap. Turn it on a little bit more this year, so that you can overflow into your parish. I'm just so humbled by this experience. And if there's anything me or my staff can do for your parish, pick up the phone and give us a call. God bless you. It's great to be with you tonight.